Hello there. The aura of revolution is spreading across the European Union, led by the farmers in their battle against the humanity-despising globalists. The people of the European Union have had enough of globalist overreach, especially the citizens of France. The French are now backing the rebellious actions of their farmers in overwhelming numbers, reports Breitbart. Despite the farmers obstructing traffic on major highways with tractors and hay bales, even setting fire to some bales outside a government building, as well as hosing some streets and government buildings with animal manure. And quelle horreur! Some protesters have been setting fire to EU flags, and that will never do. It seems that the issue of the massive clampdown on agriculture has become the focal point for the people's dissatisfaction with their governments and how they are bowing to the centrally run push for net zero, amongst other things. A push that is centrally controlled by people who appear to believe themselves to be some sort of super elite who can control what humanity does or does not do from their lofty, unelected positions. And part of this is controlling the world's food supply and dictating what ordinary humans can eat and how much of it they can eat. All couched within the excuse of saving the planet. These elites claim that agriculture produces something like a third of greenhouse gases, so agriculture must be pared back. Somehow growing natural food must be made more green. And they think that the best place to start is, of course, in the developed world. With the result that many farmers are being pushed to the financial brink. It's almost as if governments in Europe are trying to drive our food producers out of business and then buy up their land. And what would replace those farmers? Who would have control over our food supply going forwards? With the big question being, would there be enough food for everybody? Now, one gas that agriculture releases is methane. And according to the Eco Brigade, methane is a vastly more dangerous greenhouse gas than CO2. And as livestock gives off lots of methane, then we must eat less meat, so we breed less cattle, etc. Now, at one time, the US had about 30 million bison roaming around the countryside until the Europeans turned up and shot them all. Something that is viewed as an act of evil. But if the eco-lobby gets its way over meat-eating, culling cattle by the many, many million across the world will be labelled as a planet-saving measure. Now here's a couple of facts, and you only have to check out your favourite search engine to learn this sort of stuff. The Amazon rainforest produces 8% of global methane emissions. Are we going to cut that down? And China, the US, Russia and Brazil, when taken together, produce nearly half of all the methane emitted globally. And here's a big one. The crop that half the world's population relies on for sustenance, rice, is possibly the largest source of man-made methane on the planet. Yes, rice. And the globalists want us to go all plant-based with our food. So China is soaking up the world's manufacturing, so churning out immense levels of CO2, as well as churning out gargantuan levels of methane. But still the globalists go after the EU and little old UK. Anyway, the actions of the French farmers have 89% support amongst the people, according to an Adoxa Backbone Consulting survey conducted on behalf of Le Figaro. And get this, even 88% of Green Party supporters back the farmers in one way or another, with 81% of Macron supporters supporting the farmers. You'd think they would all be opposed to the farmers' agricultural methods, wouldn't you? Especially the Greens. Now, one of the side issues that is turning farmers against the European Union is a recent Brussels decision to allow Ukraine to sell its agricultural process into the EU, tariff-free. Obviously done to help Ukraine economically in its war with Russia. But the EU farmers are not happy with this, as it drives prices for their produce down. But Brussels is intent on bringing Ukraine into the EU fold as a full member. So what are the farmers going to do when Ukraine has the right to sell its vast grain crops into the EU as a fully fledged member? That one will cause Brussels a bit of a headache. Unless, of course, crop yields within the current EU states can be cut back somehow. But seriously, no doubt Ukraine will also have to eventually bow to the globalist push to reduce agricultural emissions. Now, as we know, it's not just the French that are up in pitchforks about this farming issue. While the French farmers have a long history of staging tractor and other protests, reports Breitbart, the recent peasant uprising has come amid a wider revolt within Europe against the globalist agenda, with tractor protests continuing across Germany, Romania and Poland. European farmers have previously seen success on the backs of their tractor protests, with Dutch farmer revolts leading to the farmer citizen movement becoming the largest party in the Netherlands Senate, as well as playing a key role in the sweeping victory of populist Geert Wilders in the November general election. So compare this with the support that the likes of the eco-loons, Just Stop Oil, get when they embark on their antics. The ordinary people get understandably cross with those overprivileged lefty clowns. But the people do seem to be backing the farmers, who make the eco-loons' efforts at disruption look childish in comparison. So far, the farmers have been restricting their actions mostly to the more rural areas of France, but that could change in future. They could well start hitting Paris in a big way and have already pledged to keep going as long as is necessary. So how long will it be before President Macron gets on the blower to his internationalist buddy Justin Trudeau and asks for advice on how to shut down farmers' access to finance? Remember, Trudeau versus the truckers, and him using emergency powers to shut their sources of donations down. But Trudeau has recently been slapped down by the courts for using those emergency powers. And I somehow doubt that the people of France will take kindly to Macron trying the same kind of games. And the French have a relatively recent history of undoing those that would stitch them up, don't they?